Well, Sita Raman, a pleasant good morning to all of our viewers and listeners, and welcome to an edition of the program Addiction and Recovery. It's another wonderful Thursday morning and the last Thursday, the last day in the month of November. So, Sita Ram, to all of you locked on right now. So, without further ado, let me introduce the host of the program Addiction and Recovery, Mr. Ramnaris Dwarka. Sita Ram, to you, sir.
Sitaram, Jason, and Sitaram to all our listeners, both in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide. It's a beautiful Thursday morning again. The sun is out. We are all alive, and we are fortunate to be living in this part of the world where there's no bombs dropping on our head and all of that. We take a lot of things for granted, Jason. I want to remind our listeners, of course, this is an interactive program that you can call during the program. And if you have questions, we'll be happy to address them. And for those who cannot access the program right now, they can, there's a rerun of the program at 10 p.m. tonight. So you can come back in and be able to access the program. It is also going to be um, posted on YouTube. You just have to put the name you see here, Ramnaresh Dwarika, and you will see not only this program, but all the programs for the last few months that we have been doing that deal with various segments of drug addiction and so on. So if you have someone that you love and you care about, or if you yourself have questions about whether you have moved from social drinking or drug use to compulsive drug use, these programs can help you to make that determination, can also guide you as to where you could get help in Trinidad and Tobago, worldwide. And it can also show you how to stay stopped after you've stopped, because stopping is difficult. But Jason, staying stopped and being comfortable, that's really the challenge. Now, lately, there have been uh, quite a bit of debate in the media since the opposition leader made the statement that, he believes that people should not be allowed to use marijuana until they reach 25 or allowed to gamble. And I want to say that I do agree with her on that, in that we know science has proven that the brain is still developing in the human way up to the age of 25. And the early use of any drug, psychotropic drugs are drugs that interfere with the mind, can affect the brain development. But as I say this, I am not a doctor in the medical sense, but I have worked in the field of medicine and psychiatry at almost all the hospitals in Trinidad. I am a professional in counseling and psychotherapy, and I have been seeing patients with all kinds of problems arising out of alcoholism and drug addiction. Besides that, I'm also a person in recovery, Jason. I've been there, done that. So I speak from that place as well. And what I want to say is that, when we speak about the brain, we talk about the biological development. And yes, marijuana, alcohol, all the psychotropic drugs, including the prescription pills, can affect the brain development biologically. But I want to stick a pin here and to recognize that development is not only biological or physical, there is psychological development. That is, that young people, children transitioning into young adults, they have a task, a developmental task of developing psychological uh, abilities to be able to resolve conflict, to help them to cope, to feel good about themselves. So psychological development is lifelong. Even at my age, I am still learning quite a few things, Jason, and I'm sure you are as well. So that the development of the human coping skills and the self-esteem and relationships and all of that, we know are affected negatively in most instances with active use of any psychotropic drug, be it marijuana, alcohol, cocaine, or even the prescription pills can affect our psychological state, our soundness of mind. So that age is only one factor, but generally, any addiction is has negative consequences. It doesn't matter at what age. Now, I can tell you, being out there in the trenches, that most of the people, most of the young, the adults eventually who become addicted in Trinidad and Tobago, they start way earlier, sometimes as early as 12, 13, if they're living in an environment where marijuana is available. Most of the time, a lot of people are using marijuana before they even start using alcohol, especially in certain areas, east-west corridor up in the east and so on, where it is available, where there's a lot of cultivation and so on, and especially among unemployed youths. You understand? So um, the policy makers, in fact, I labored to influence the decision-making process way back in 2019 when they were having all these consultations about the decriminalization of marijuana. But of course, I am like one voice alone in the wilderness. And it became, to my mind, very politically expedient at the time to pass the legislation because politicians are moved by popularity. You know, we really can't blame them. If the society say, look, the majority of people in the society say we want this, you'll get that. So even the government we have is chosen by ourselves. So we must take responsibility for our leaders in a way, and also for the policies they make. Because if we stay quiet, we don't say anything, we become passive, then you have all kinds of legislation coming down. I'm yet to see any real impact made on the crime situation because that was one of the crusading factors. The policymakers were making the case that if we decriminalize marijuana, we will see a reduction in the crime levels. Well, you only have to pick up any newspaper any day to see what has happened. And although in the legislation, accommodation was made for a certain amount, 30 grams, I think it is, that you could be found with on your possession. But in these days, Jason, where we can't even solve the murder problems, murders in this country is like, I mean, going into critical proportions. I think this year we're probably going to have the highest number of murders. Do you think our police officers have time to check, see who has more than one, two marijuana trees or four marijuana trees at the back of their house? Or to stop every adult and walk with a scale to weigh how much grams of marijuana you have in your possession? I mean, let's be practical. No, we can't afford police time for all of that because the police have so many around this time of the year. We don't even have sufficient people to boots on the ground in Port of Spain. You understand, to the extent where we have to now bring out the army to assist if we are going to cope with managing the social problems, the criminal problems we are having. So that again, we also know that marijuana use, alcohol use, cocaine use, gambling as well. These all have led to people becoming addicted, dependent. You understand? So a young man at the age of 25 is in the prime of his life. And if you set yourself up to start becoming addicted to gambling, because let me say this at the outset, not everyone who gamble will become addicted. Not everyone who drink alcohol will become alcoholic. Or not everyone who smoke marijuana will become addicted to the substance. But Jason, everyone who has become addicted or dependent started with that first smoke, that first drink, or that first punt in the gamble. If there was no drinking, no gambling, you can't become addicted. So that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to just speak to the people who are working in the trenches like myself, and they will tell you that, the old saying, you can't put cat to watch man cheese. As soon as you turn your back, the cat will eat the cheese. So too, we are really setting up our young people And by decriminalizing the marijuana, what we did was make it more available, and we have reduced, if not eliminated, the consequence. Now, I have been saying on this program since we started, years now, that the only way any drug addict or alcoholic, the only reason they are going to stop using alcohol or drugs, even when they realize they have a problem. First, the problem is a lot of them don't have insight and don't even know or think or want to admit that they have a problem with the alcohol or drugs. But even for those who have the level of honesty to realize, hey, the marijuana is causing a problem, or the alcohol is causing a problem, or cocaine, even then they are unwilling to stop because they have become dependent. And the only way these people will even consider stopping the use of the drugs is when the consequences, when they are made to feel the consequences of their behavior. So I've said it many times. I usually say it slowly so our listeners will really understand and appreciate what I'm saying, that no alcoholic or drug addict is going to stop using alcohol or drugs, Jason, unless to continue to use it becomes more painful than stopping. Because for a person who has become dependent on drugs, to stop is a very painful thing. A lot of them, they start using it because of anxiety, which is caused by withdrawal symptoms from the drug that they're using, whether it is illegal or legal, or depression. That is also caused by the drug, that is that because of the dependence. And the withdrawal symptom for most psychotropic drugs is depression, anxiety, muscle pain, nausea, sometimes vomiting, disorientation, delirium tremens, all of these things, heart palpitations. These are all withdrawal symptoms that emanate from the person's drug use. And when they're not using it, they go through these experiences, and these become so painful and intolerable that they have to use the drug. So, for that person, a person who has reached to self medicating with drugs, for them to consider stopping, you have to give them something else. You understand? And this is why, if they go to the medical in seeking help in medicine, they might be prescribed a psychotropic prescription pill. But that is a substitution. To my mind and from my experience, that just make matters worse. Because for people who are addicted to marijuana and cocaine, it's much easier to come off, Jason, than for people who are addicted to prescription pills, who have become dependent on medications, psychotropic medication. So the point is, bottom line again, is that unless these people are allowed to feel the consequences of their behavior, they are not going to even consider changing. And when we decriminalized marijuana, what we did was remove one of the most severe consequences of the behavior. So in other words, no consequences, so why do I want to stop? You understand? And it is available, and they really don't have the manpower to prosecute and execute the law as it is registered. As I said earlier on, nobody's coming to check the trees or weigh the marijuana on the person. The only time these things happen, you know, and in my experience, I'm not blaming all the people in legal in law enforcement, but I know a lot of fellas get them marijuana users, they get squeezed by the law to give information, to become pigeons. You understand? And this is when law enforcement will come down heavy on you, because they want you to give information about what's happening on the block, what happened on the street, what's happening in the area, who stole what, who did what. You understand? And it is used in a way like that. But really, that is not appropriate. So coming back to the whole question of, I would not even say that a person should start at 25. In fact, I would say, Jason, that if you don't want to go in a certain direction, don't even look that way. Because, yes, while we want to preserve every human being their right to choose, you have a right to choose, even if you want to commit suicide, that's your choice, you know. You understand? And yes, it's against the law to attempt suicide. You know, you can be prosecuted for that. That law is still on the books. But it never stopped anybody if they had so if they so intended. What I'm saying is, however, we were better off when when young people were being arrested for marijuana use, even the first initial use, because that would have given us a window of opportunity to intervene. When they were brought before the court on their first offense, the magistrate would have had a good opportunity to say, hey, go and now seek counseling and seek help or seek treatment. But now we don't even have that tool available to us. It is there for alcohol now with the driving under the influence, where you can breathalyze a person and you can send them to the court. And the court is referring these people daily to Alcoholics Anonymous and treatment facilities, and they're having very good results. I am aware of this because I've seen so many people sent to the court because they were found to be driving under the influence, and because the magistrate insisted, and the lawyers know that if you go to AA meetings and you get an accreditation from them that you are attending and you're staying sober, it is a very powerful tool in mitigation to help you to get back your license and not get convicted and all of that. So, but for marijuana, we don't have any breathalyzer. You understand? We don't know. And the fact that it is not criminal, a person can take it with them on the job. And can you imagine a neurosurgeon or one of them taking a smoke before they come to do your surgery, Jason? Well, you might accept it because you're under anesthetic and you're not conscious. You understand? But the fact of the matter is that I don't think anyone would accept that kind of arrangement. So that, again, let me say this. I know that young people are not only curious about geography and history and chemistry, they're also curious about drugs, and the alcohol and the cigarette is advertised. Again, I have to compliment this media house for not advertising alcohol and cigarettes and all of those things and gambling. But they are not there are some other media houses that are not as socially responsible, I would say. But coming back, I'm saying that young people are going to experiment with these things. They're aware of it and it's available. And we know that, right? Because in the communities, you just have to walk around. We know the influence of peer pressure. And even though your child coming from a good background, a good respectable family, but he's going to school and meeting with other children and they are talking. And somebody bring a little joint to the school, and I know because I used to be the president of the National Council on Alcoholism and Other Addictions. And we were constantly getting invitations from very, sometimes prestigious schools to come and counsel children or to do presentations on substance abuse and drug addiction, because children are hiding behind the school and drinking alcohol from chubby bottles and smoking marijuana, and now gradually teachers are losing their influence, I would say. We just, I think it was last night, we saw a video. This is in Tobago, where it was chaotic, where so many girls were beating up on one, and it's recorded on social media. You understand? So in my days in school, you couldn't even imagine that. There was so much more respect for the teachers and the system. Today, young children, and now we are actually in this morning papers talking about sending children now who are drop out from school, who are presenting with behavioral problems. We want to send them to boot camp, send them into the draft system, as we have seen happen elsewhere. And of course, there are going to be debates about this. I wouldn't want to comment on that yet, but that's a sign that we are failing as a society. We are not being able to prevent the system and obviate it in the first place. We are not proactive here. That is reactive. You understand? And although this program will recognize that there will be people who will always use drugs, and yes, we talk about treatment facilities and what to do on Alcoholics Anonymous, but a lot of my emphasis on these programs, if you notice these is to help people to prevent themselves from getting there in the first place. You understand? And this is why I am not in agreement. I have never been in the agreement of decriminalizing, because I don't think we just did this because something just has to happen in America and we in the first world and we just follow suit. We without even considering carefully. Yes, we had consultations and all of that, but I understand these things because I used to use, and I know how influential, how persuasive an alcoholic or a drug addict could be when they want to secure and procure their drugs. You understand? They will even be able to convince God if you ask them. You understand? And so this is why policymakers who have not been there, done that, may not really fully grasp how to deal with this problem. You understand? Now, you would hear a lot of, I don't mind discussing and debating with young people. I have them in my office. A lot of marijuana users who come for counseling, they're brought by their family members. And these young people, they do their research and they will try to find all kinds of ways to tell you why marijuana is good and why they should be allowed to use it and try to justify. And I welcome that because it helps me to allow them to clear up doubts. Now, let me say this up front. We have three kinds of psychotropic drugs, Jason. General categories. There is those drugs that are sedatives. Sedatives will include alcohol. It will include sleeping pills, barbiturates, and all of those, tranquilizers, and your cough syrups, all of those can sedate you and cause you to sleep. All right. And a lot of people, you can become dependent on those. Now, there are stimulants. Stimulants are those that can make you wake all night and feel energized. And it was very famous and popular with performers and people who are on the road performing and all of that, who living fast, in the fast lane and so on. And so cocaine is one of those that have been found to be a very good stimulant. Caffeine is a stimulant, those. And then there's a third group that is called hallucinogens, right? That make you see and hear things that are not there. And those would include things like heroin and PCP and all of those things. You understand? And those are very quick to send you to a mental hospital. Things like joy juice and all of those things. You notice I didn't mention marijuana in all of that. And what would be your opinion, Jason? Which group you think marijuana might fit into? Is marijuana a sedative? Is it a stimulant? Or is it a hallucinogen? What do you think?
All of all three.
Well, you're right. You're a bright student. In fact, if a student had said anyone, they'd be right. Because marijuana is the only drug known to man that can act as mimic the symptoms of any other psychotropic drug. So let's back up here. Let's think for a minute. Alcohol is only a sedative. And look at the amount of trouble it's causing. Motor vehicle accident, domestic violence, you know, driving under the influence, and you name it. Spending money that you shouldn't spend, and liver problems, and everything it touches, it affects. Alcohol, and it's only a sedative. And then cocaine. I used to be director at the Barrow Empowerment Center, Jason, and it's really a sad sight to see lives that were so constructive. I've had patients, most of the patients while I was there, the clients, were people who we would have taken off the streets, homeless people, because we thought they were the priority at first. We were trying to empty the Riverside car park at the time because that's really an indictment on the society, a blotch in the face right in the city of the policymakers. And you would be surprised that a lot of people who ended up in Riverside car park on the streets, homeless, were people who were budding professionals and some of them professionals as well. You understand? Who ended up there because of cocaine. Cocaine will reduce you to nothing, to the street in no time, because you can use all your savings that you ever accumulated in your whole life in a very short time, Jason. With cocaine, you can blow it out. And so too, when you smoke crack cocaine, all the dopamine you saved up in your whole lifetime, you get used, it floods your brain, and you feel so high that you can't imagine what it is to feel high on your first use of crack cocaine. And this is why a lot of people go back to that. And that is only cocaine. And look what it does to people in this society. And then you have heroin and PCP and joy juice and even marijuana. Well, I just mentioned marijuana, but if you go to St. Anne's Hospital, you'll see a lot of people there that are there because of drug induced psychosis. Now, step back a little bit. A drug that can do all three can be a sedative, can be a stimulant, can mimic a hallucinogen. Are you really in a sober mind, sensible mind, telling me it is safe to use that drug? Because, listen, once you start using a drug, at first you might take a little zut of marijuana. That's how I started. A little zut, a little piece. Boy, and two pull, and I was high like a kite. I remember I was going to full gas in the gas station in Davie, and I started to cold sweat, and I didn't even stay for the gas. I wanted to just go home and lie down. Now, at different time, depending on your mental state, it's called set and settings, your mindset, and the setting in which you are, the drug would have an influence on you relating to the mindset and setting. You understand? So in the old days, when them people light up the chillum and sit down in a group and read their book and take one pull, they were able to enjoy it. And in that setting, it was found to be very, very useful. However, now we're not doing that. People are eventually I moved from one little thing joint to a whole cigarette, and I was starting to smoke marijuana like I was like it was cigarettes. As soon as the effects was going away, going down, I would light up another one. And so I was flying low all the time. And I too thought that look, like some people present, they say, look, when you smoke marijuana, Jason, it is true. You could go into the depth of discussion. You could become very, very spiritual and philosophical and all of that. And some people claim that they could read between the lines and all of that. There may be some bit, yes, it allows you to expand your fantasies and all of that. Problem is, next day I couldn't remember one thing I had read. You understand? That was the problem. It affects your short-term memory. And that's a serious thing for students who think, and I'll tell you this from experience, I have a lot of young people from the East-West corridor, from very, very well-to-do families who going to UV here and all of that, that was introduced to marijuana on campus, as a cool thing. You used to have a bar called Infinity when I used to go there. You understand? And now I understand the bars in the community, they're sending free transport. They have special days where you get, if you come with your badge, you get a discounted price for your alcohol, and then the marijuana is there right outside the gate. And so I am seeing a lot of young people coming who are dropping out like flies from their programs because they can't stay with the work. They can't maintain their standards. You understand? Some of them might struggle their way through and still manage to scrape a pass and get out of university, but you are headed down a road. I'll say this bluntly. Alcoholism and drug addiction, there are only three places that it will take you, right? That is, one is it can take you to the hospital, right? Or mental hospital, that is, it can take you to jail, or the third place, you can end up in the cemetery. Now, I know we're all going to die. And I used to say that, Jason, I used to say, look, we're all going to die. Whether you drink, you're going to die, or whether you don't drink, you're still going to die. And I like to drink, so leave me. Leave me, let me take my drink. You understand? I want to die, I die. I'll be a happy man. And the same thing with the other drugs too. But what a life. You know, we always tend to look at other people and not look at the truth in ourselves. What kind of life I was living? My life from the age of 18 to the age of 36 is like I was marking time in one spot, was going nowhere, and quickly I was losing the respect of my siblings, my community. I was losing my confidence in myself. I was losing my money. And I was not, I had started, there's one thing that happens with people who use drugs. They lose what is called in Jamaica your stick to itiveness. That is, they start a lot of things, but they can't seem to finish it. They'll start the house and can't finish it. They'll start to study, can't finish the course. And I hope, and plans, they'll have a lot of plans, but implementation at all, they can't. You understand? And these are the truths about drug addiction, and we have to face it. You understand? So that it is easy for people who have not used, who have not lived that life, to think, well, look, man, this seems to be popular, let's do it. But coming back to, I have looked around, I don't see many old people who started using marijuana when they were young. Have you, Jason? I just suspect that something in between old age and youthfulness, we just lose them. You understand? We lose them somewhere along the road. You understand? Alcohol, same thing. But you see, alcohol, you live a little longer in that you start using alcohol and getting addicted at approximately age 35 is the mean age for alcohol addiction. The mean age for marijuana addiction in Trinidad is 16. Cocaine is 17. Because the same people selling the marijuana, let us be the logistics of it here, the same people selling the marijuana, selling the cocaine, the blocks that we have in Trinidad. And why a person is using drug? They want to have an experience and they want to be able to talk about it with their peers. And the fellas in the group will tell you, boy, move up to something better now, man. That is boo, they call it. What you smoking is boo. Because the other fella lacing is marijuana with cocaine. So his stuff is going to give you a different effect. So don't go down the road there by that block, come down here. And the blocks are still there in spite of the decriminalization. You understand? The blocks are still there. And what is at the root of the gang warfare is managing the blocks. You can't come in my turf and sell drugs. You understand? And if you want to take it credit and you can't pay, then I have to come and make you pay. You have enforcers. You understand? And these things have not disappeared with the decriminalization. But nobody's talking about it because it would make some people look very unpopular. You understand? But again, as I say, the responsibility is with every one of us. We get the leaders we deserve. So if we crooked and we ourselves compromise on principle and all of that, I mean, they are one of us as a society, everyone, and we have to, every listener listening to this program can, Jason, resolve today that, look, you know what? I am not going to use any psychotropic drug, anything that is not good for me. Because we kind of scapegoat in drugs. But a lot of people eating sugar when they should not, eating chocolates that they know not good for them. You understand? Engaging in risky behavior. You have a family, you have wife, you have children, but you have a deputy outside there and you know it's going to wreck your family life, destroy your relationships, but you still don't seem to be, because there's such a thing as sexual addiction too, Jason. And the same program that was played at the beginning, just before this program started, that 12-step program that the presenter spoke about, is the same program that is being used for Gamblers Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. They are all because it speaks to man's spiritual development. And on this program, we have discussed that same 12 step. And anyone listening, if you have not familiar with it, you can go back to my programs on YouTube and you can look up the 12 as discussion on the 12 steps of as used in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I have found those principles very, very applicable. As a young person, I have always been a seeker, always want to know. I've been a skeptic, a born skeptic as well. And I would question even religion and the religious texts. I was fortunate enough, Jason, to be born in a family that, you know, my great grandfather was a sadhu and great grandmother was a sadhuine. They were vegetarians, very religious, spiritual people. We had a Ramayana book in the house. My grandfather read Ramayana, and I was fortunate to be able to learn Hindi at a very early age. And I can speak Hindi just as fluently as English. I can read and write it as well, thanks to the people in that little village and a man named Bharos. He's no longer with us, but his children are there, who taught so many of us Hindi, that we could read Hindi. And I have, so that I don't just believe something because somebody say, I will question it. And this is okay for children to question things, but we must be able to have the answers. You understand? And I question the existence of God as well. And yes, as I said, I was a critic, and I became devil's advocate. And that's when my drinking started and my drug use started. But I have come full circle and I have found God by practicing those same 12 steps I referred to. Today, I don't believe in God anymore, Jason. I have come to know God. There's a difference between believing in God and knowing God. You understand? Belief is what leads to a lot of problems in the world. You believe God have four hands. I believe he only have two. Me and you are going to fight over that now. My God said you shouldn't eat meat. Your God said it's okay to eat meat. We'll fight over that. You understand? And if you look at the world, man, look at what's happening in the rest of the world. Because I am Jew and you are Arab. I have the right to eliminate you. You understand? So that, not wanting to be political, but the fact is, this is why those 12 steps can respond to any kind of addiction, because it leads a human being to find the happiness, as it did with me. I was seeking happiness and peace of mind in toys and money and work and property and status and education and all of that. And then I found it in recovery. You understand? Because smoking marijuana, getting high for a few minutes or a few hours, you know, yeah, while you're under the influence, you feel like, well, that is it, you're euphoric. But if you go to St. Anne's, and I used to work at St. Anne's, and you drive around the ring road there, Jason, you'll meet a lot of young people in St. Anne's, and they are not there because of alcohol or any other drug. Most of them are there because of marijuana use, because of drug-induced psychosis. Because if you have a history of schizophrenia in your family, and you go and start using marijuana, it can accelerate the onset of schizophrenia. So yes, we could listen to all of these activists and them who, parading the fact and want to argue, but before they want to debate that, they should be able to stop using marijuana on their own. You know, I will never argue with a person who is under the influence. You're wasting time. I would not counsel a person if they came to my office under the influence of marijuana or alcohol, because I'm not speaking to the person at all. I'm speaking to the marijuana and the alcohol. You understand? So as a matter of principle, in the drug treatment centers too, you will not be evaluated if you went there under the influence. And so to all our listeners, if you want to speak to an alcoholic or a drug addict, please don't speak to them when they have one or two in their head or they take a smoke, because you are provoking trouble. They might become abusive and they may even become physically abusive to you. So, no, you don't speak to them then. You choose a time when they are clear, when they, like maybe the next day when they going through feelings of remorse, then they're more likely to listen. So I just thought I'd share those thoughts. Of course, seems like the horse has bolted, but it is never too late. Every one of us individually, we are responsible for preserving our serenity, our peace of mind, and our character and our own mental health. Nobody can do it for us. And this is what this program is about. And I want to let you know, if you are using cigarettes, alcohol, any one of those things, and you would like to stop, and if you have tried to stop and having difficulty, you can reach me at 671-3040. Or if you have a relative who's having that problem, prevention is better than cure. You may not have become addicted as yet with the marijuana or the alcohol, you're enjoying it, but yeah, I use the word yet, Jason. That little word, like I said, no alcoholic or drug addict has become addicted by using it, by using anything else. You understand? Once you start, you are walking on that road, and nobody knows when you switch from being a social user to becoming dependent. You understand? It's like it's an invisible borderline, and you might already become dependent without realizing it, because there's a tendency, Jason, when you're using these things, to rationalize it. Like I would say in the old days, I don't play cricket, I don't play football, I don't gamble. So if I take a few drinks, Jason, what's wrong with that? So what? A man must not have a good time? And I actually believe that, only to realize the real reason I wasn't playing cricket and football is because, boy, I was getting a punch and I couldn't run. And I had never had luck at gambling. I don't like to lose money, even now. You understand? And the truth was, I had become dependent on the alcohol and the drugs. I didn't want to face it. But then, even when I realized it and I wanted to face it and I wanted to do something about it, I couldn't. I had to get help. You understand? So I want to let our listeners know help is available. All you have to do, and I want to thank you and the people at the station, because you have been doing human service to this community by hosting this program, and by also, I know a lot of people get referred from the radio station. They say, I call the radio station and I got your number. And so a lot of people are getting an opportunity to save their lives. And as I said again, if you want to go back and review these programs, all you have to do, this program within the next 10-15 minutes will also be posted on YouTube. You can go back and listen to the program. And of course, you can pause it, you can fast forward it, listen to whatever you want to listen, you didn't hear clear. Or better still, you can call me if you want any clarification on anything. So I want to thank you, Jason, for again
So it's a
facilitating the program this morning.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to have on the program, Mr. Dwarka, and taking the time to do this program. And on the road to recovery, it's always good to relive and take a deeper insight into the dangers of alcohol and drug abuse. So until next Thursday, a brand new month, I'm Jason Kalu saying Sitram for now.
Sure.